Folks, we're going to begin. I know there are a few people still in the line to register to vote, but we'll be going through a couple of housekeeping items. We will not be conducting actual business until everybody is seated. So before we begin, I want to thank you for coming out tonight. No snow, fortunately. That's tomorrow. I'm led to believe that the school district has canceled classes for tomorrow. And I'm seeing nodding heads in the affirmative. So if you have children planning on going to school tomorrow, don't. Some quick thank yous. On behalf of the SAU, we want to thank the custodians here at the Ringe Memorial School, the principals of all schools, many of them are seated up front here, the supervisors of the checklist for both Ringe and Jaffrey, Girl Scout Troop 59095. They'll be our color guard tonight and will be leading us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Also like to welcome Jaden Bryan, who will be singing our national anthem. And of course, AMT Productions for the audiovisual assistance over here. So we begin with the presentation of the American flag by the Girl Scouts of Girl Scout Troop 59095, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. The Girl Scouts will actually be leading us in the pledge up front. So I'd ask all please to stand. Girls.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The color guard will now post the colors. I'd like to introduce to you Jaden Bryan. Jaden is the student representative to the school board. She's a senior at the high school, National Honor Society vice president, member of the Educators Rising president at Conval. She's a CTE course completer, varsity cheer captain, and assistant educator at the Little Orioles Child Care Center. You have the floor, Jaden.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Thank you, Girl Scouts, and thank you, Jaden. One other thank you to both the interactors at the Conant High School and also to the Jaffrey Ringe Education Association. If by chance you have children, there are a dozen plus in the back room, and they will be there until the end of the meeting. I'd like to quickly introduce two people before I introduce to you Reuben Duncan. One is Gordon Graham, who is our legal counsel. And secondly, Leslie McLean, who is our deputy, or rather, who is our district clerk, seated right up front here. I'd like to introduce Reuben Duncan for any opening remarks and introduction to the members of the SAU 47 School Board.
Well, welcome this evening. It's great to see such a packed crowd here. I'll keep my remarks a little short tonight because I think we have a lot of things to talk about, some presentations and some discussions. So I'm going to just introduce to you some people who are going to be presenting tonight regarding the warrant articles, and individuals also who may be asked questions or asked to answer questions. To my right over here, we have Chris Ratcliffe from Ringe as the board chair. Christine Pressman from Jaffrey, the vice chair. Sandra Stewart from Jaffrey, board member. Charlie Eicher from Ringe, board member. John McCarthy from Jaffrey, board member. And Lisa Wiley is back there as also a supervisor of the checklist, but she is from Ringe and a board member that will be coming up here. Also on the board, Kim McCoyne. She's not able to be here tonight. To my left, we have the school district attorney, Gordon Graham. Jaden Bryan, you just heard from her. She's a school board student representative. Carrie Shields, the CFO. Not up here, but may be able to answer some questions later on. Should she need to. We have Jennifer Horn, Director of Student Services in the audience from Ringe. And we have several of our administrators up front here as well, who may be able to assist. I'm going to turn this back over to Bob, and we'll get started. Thank you.
Thank you, Reuben. Couple of quick housekeeping chores. As you can appreciate, no smoking in the building. The restrooms are located to the left and right as you approach the exit, fire exits, or you can see where they are. I'd like to ask the audience if anybody has any concerns, if we have any voters under 18, i.e. students, who might wish to speak at the meeting. Does anyone have a major concern with that? Seeing none, thank you. And lastly, non-residents, non-voters should be seated in the what we'll call the non-resident section, which would be, well, it's now filled with voters. So, so bottom line, what we're going to do when we ask you to vote, if it's a voice vote, I will ask you all to hold up your pink cards so I can see your vote. Obviously, voters who don't have, non-voters will not have those. Okay. We have 7 articles for this year's 2025 warrant. And the first warrant article is actually one on which you will vote on Tuesday, March the 11th at your town election, both in Ringe and in Jaffrey, where you will also vote not only for the town warrant articles, but for the SAU district officers for 2025. The first article we will discuss this evening is Article 2, which relates to the proposed design, construction, and equipping of a new career and technical education center and renovation at Conant Middle High School. Now, as our cooperative school district deliberative session is governed by the passage of Senate Bill 2, we shall vote in the 2 towns via paper ballot on the SAU 47 warrant articles as we agree to the wording and or the dollar figures this evening. Again, the voting in both towns will run from 7 a.m. till 7 p.m. on Tuesday, March the 11th. So we welcome all of you who may be new to the towns of Jaffrey or Rindge. Let me take just a moment to ask by a show of hands, how many of you are attending a school district deliberative session for the first time? Just hold up your hands, please. Okay, we have several. Good. Welcome. Let me just take a moment to share with you what you as voters may do at tonight's deliberative session under Senate Bill 2. Essentially, this body is empowered to do two things. As we go over each of the warrant articles, you may agree to maintain the original wording of the warrant article as presented. And if the original warrant article wording would, if approved, it will be placed on the March 11th official ballot. They'll be voted on by the citizens of both towns. In addition, you may also amend the original wording or dollar amounts of the original warrant article. Amendments require a simple majority and be made from the floor. A second to the motion that's proposed for an amendment is necessary. After the discussion, if the amendment passes, the final amended warrant article will be placed on the March 11th official ballot. What, as moderator, I would ask you to do is two things. Number one, if you do wish to speak at the microphone, please let us know your name and your town so we know who you are. Leslie is bringing the microphone right up here. I have no problem with having a line or a queue being created. That saves us some time. But please give us your name and address. Likewise, should an amendment to any of the warrant articles be made, we ask you to please submit the warrant article amendment as proposed in writing along with your name for the record. We also need to have the name of the person who is seconding such an amendment, if that could also be made known to us, again, for the record. In the past several years, I've been privileged, I believe it's been about 10 years now, I've been privileged to serve as your school district moderator, and what we've suggested a couple simple rules for discussion that I'll share. There's one microphone up front, as I mentioned, and we've already indicated, please give your name and also your town. We also will have a roving microphone if anyone has some physical challenges and would like to have the microphone brought up to them. Leslie McLean will be glad to do that. Just wave your hand. If I don't see you, don't be afraid to yell out because we have about 200 people in the room. And what I see is a sea of smiling faces. When you wish to speak, simply, again, state your name and your town so we know who you are and which town you live. Now, the chair asks, because we may have several speakers tonight, as others may also wish to speak, that each voter limit their comments to 3 minutes. This will be ample opportunity to express your perspectives, ask questions, propose an amendment, so that others then may be able to speak. A voter may speak a second time, but only after those who are at the microphone who have not yet spoken a first time have an opportunity to do so. It's quite possible that you may call the question. The calling the question says, okay, no more debate, let's vote. And this will be recognized only after those who are still at the microphone have an opportunity to speak first. I would ask that if a question's called, please don't then go rushing up to the microphone because you're a day late and $1 short. Once we vote on that, we will then take a vote to end the discussion, and you make the decision as to whether we continue discussion or whether we will end discussion. There will be no amendments to amendments. This can get very confusing for those of you comfortable with parliamentary procedure. So we'll vote on one amendment at a time. And again, voice vote, simple majority. Sometimes a major warrant article will be found agreeable in its final form. Sometimes people will leave. And every once in a while, and I've seen this as a town moderator in 2 other towns for 30 plus years, somebody will say, hey, let's bring up that warrant article again. And the small number of people remaining will say, yeah. And you would go home early thinking, okay, that's done deal. So what we do to prevent that from happening is we request a motion to restrict reconsideration. And what this does, it prevents what I call the 11th hour resurrection. So I will accept a motion to restrict reconsideration, which requires a second, after each warrant article is discussed and we have agreed on the final wording, whether it's been amended or not. That way, when you leave, what this voting body has agreed to is what will appear on the ballot. So these are the proposed rules. If you favor these, I would ask you please to signify by saying aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you. We're going to focus on Article 2. Article 1, of course, is where you will vote on Tuesday, the 11th of March, for a moderator, Ringe School District member, Jaffrey School Board member, and one at-large school board member. So there'll be no discussion on that. I'm going to read Article 2. Article 2 says, shall the Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District raise and appropriate the sum of $22,895,000 for the design, construction, and equipping of a new career and technical education center addition and renovation at Conant Middle High School, to authorize the acceptance of $16,046,000 of New Hampshire Regional Career and Technical Education funding from the New Hampshire Department of Education and not from local taxes, to authorize the school board to apply for, obtain, accept, and expend any other federal, state, or other aid and or donations, if any, which may be available for said project and comply with all laws applicable to said project, to authorize the issuance of not more than $6,849,000 of bonds or notes in compliance with the Municipal Finance Act, RSA 33:1, etc., as amended, to authorize the school board to issue, negotiate, sell, and deliver said bonds, and appropriate the additional sum of $171,225 for the first year payment on the bond, and to authorize the school board to take any other action in connection therewith or pass any other vote relative thereto. If the DOE CTE funding is less than $16,046,000, the appropriation in this article will be reduced by the difference between the funding anticipated, again, $16,046,000, and the actual funding the district receives, and the project scope will be adjusted accordingly. That is the complete wording of Article 2. Christine Pressman will present from the school board perspective.
Vote. On March 11th, Ringe and Jaffrey voters will have the opportunity to vote to approve the construction of a new career and technical education addition to the Conant Middle High School. This project will add 2 new programs, culinary arts and public safety and security, including EMT, and expand the existing and much beloved construction trades program with a larger indoor and outdoor lab space. Learners will be able to spend more of their day doing active, hands-on, and skills-based work, like growing vegetables in a rooftop greenhouse and learning how to cook them in the culinary lab, and overall provides new ways of learning with the focus on flexibility, creativity, and problem solving. A central courtyard connects the addition to the existing school, creating a new central gathering space for both school use and community events. If approved by local voters, the project will move on to the New Hampshire State Legislature for final approval. This is the final year of the state's 20-year cycle to fund career and technical education, building renovations, and new construction. Every approved career and technical education construction project over the last 19 years has been funded at 75%, and it is believed that this will be the same. The total estimated cost for this project is $22,895,000. If approved, $16 million of that would be funded by the state. The school board voted unanimously to recommend the warrant article, citing especially the once-in-a-generation opportunity and significant increase to learner opportunities. A yes vote means that the maximum amount raised by local taxes would only be $6,849,000, only a quarter of the total cost. For this warrant to pass, at least 60% of all votes cast must be a yes vote. The warrant article provides specifics on the 3-year tax impact. So don't forget to get out and vote on March 11th. On March
Ladies and gentlemen, friends and neighbors, we stand at a pivotal moment in our community's history. We have the chance to inspire, engage, and empower current and future learners to thrive in their lives and communities. This is our once-in-a-generation opportunity to revolutionize career and technical education for Jaffrey, Rindge, as well as for the learners in the Conval and Messinic school districts. If not us, then who? The CTE edition is a space where our learners can be engaged in hands-on, career-oriented, skill-based education. Completers of the program will receive trade-based certifications and in some cases, college credit. By investing in these future generations, our region will flourish with the fruits of their labor. The completers of the new CTE edition will create new local businesses, build homes and places of worship, create restaurants, provide safety and security for our community, and serve as EMTs. The career-based tracks will be open to students from Conant, Messinic, Conval, charter schools, private schools, and to homeschoolers. While students from other districts will pay tuition, helping to offset programming costs, Jaffrey Rindge learners will always get first priority. The CTE edition will also benefit traditional education students who will have the chance to explore future career pathways, meet STEM requirements, and engage in dynamic, hands-on learning. The 3 tracks, culinary arts, construction trades, and public safety, were identified by the state as having both strong growth in our region and by our learners as areas of great interest. Culinary arts and EMT programs in other regions like Keene and Milford are so popular that our students have been turned away due to full capacity. In fact, Region 14, our region, is the only CTE region in the state that does not offer a culinary art tracks to the students. The CTE edition will also provide much needed space for our community. A student-run cafe will be open to the public, allowing learners to showcase their culinary skills while learning hands-on business management skills that can be applied to other types of future business enterprises. The addition is designed to allow community groups to utilize the space without compromising security for our learners. We envision this space being used by community groups for adult education, workshops, and community meetings. If not now, then when? As the adults in this beautiful community, we have a once-in-a-generation opportunity. If we turn away from this chance to receive 75% state funding, it will be gone. There is no next year, and maybe not even another 20-year state funding cycle. As we saw from the Warren article, there is a cost to investing in the future. No one is offering us a free ride. It is up to us to seize this opportunity to inspire future generations with our commitment to them, to engage them with hands-on, dynamic, career, and skill-based learning that will empower this and future generations to thrive. Thank you. Let's make this vision a reality.
One of the things I learned teaching college is that no paragraph should be more than 6 to 8 lines. And as a result, when you have a large warrant article like this one here, it's quite possible that the human eyeball drowns in an ocean of words. I missed about 10 words, and it's about the 6th or 7th line up from the bottom. It says, and determine the rate of interest thereon and maturity of other terms thereof. Otherwise, I read the whole thing. At this point, I invite questions, comments, and please approach the microphone. Yes, raise your hand if you need the roving mic brought to you. Again, your name, sir, and your town.
Yes, Rick Martin, from 345 East Monadnock Road in Ringe, been a resident here for about 20 years.
Thank
And
you.
had a few of my children come through the school district. I just wanted to articulate what are we doing for the vocational shops and the construction trades? I'm not clear about the identification of what that would involve. In addition to articulating what is the industry job demands for culinary arts and EMT, there is a various difference between what students are interested in and what the employment gaps are determining for skilled labor as identified by the New Hampshire Works Initiative, which has that data on their website. So I'm concerned that if we're going to put this money invested into, which I'm a big proponent of, I'm the superintendent director of a vocational technical school in Massachusetts, and we run every program under the sun. So I'm extremely familiar with that. But when I see supplies and materials for $15,000, knowing that a full operational kitchen is going to cost $250,000 at the very minimum. And I don't know if there's been research around Perkins funding, which is what Jaffrey Ringe School District would qualify for on an annual basis of $50,000 to $100,000 every year, which can offset a lot of other costs. So I'm a big proponent of it. I just don't know regards to the details, how well it's been thought through as far as where the employment needs. Do we have industry partners? Do we have co-op opportunities that can align students with guaranteed jobs once they leave? So if we're going to do training, we don't need to go back to the old industrial kitchen model of just, having a stove or a few minimal items that don't lead to direct employment. If we invest into the correct equipment, which is utilized in the industry, then kids are going to have the skills to then obtain employment. So that was my take.
Thank you. Yes, please. Next. David, do you address that? Please. David Dustin, principal.
Thank you for that question. That was a fantastic question and a lot that we've grappled with as we planned this project out over the last couple of years. We actually did engage in lots of surveying of the community to ascertain what students would be interested in. But part of this process is also gathering State Department of Labor data for which career pathways could be supported by future employment. And there were some that were removed from consideration, even though they were highly surveyed by our students. One of those was the fire science program that initially we felt could have a lot of benefit to the community. However, the State Department of Education, as they did their vetting process, actually removed that from consideration only because they stated that their employment figures didn't support that as a career future opportunity with enough openings for the state to fund it. So there was a pretty extensive vetting process to make sure that the career pathways here did have a lot of labor opportunity and a lot of need in the community. The other piece I want to mention is that the Perkins funding is absolutely something that we do take advantage of in limited quantity now for the construction trades program, and we would be able to expand the portion of the local Perkins funds as we expanded our programs and our program needs. So that would absolutely offset future costs. We can use those federal Perkins funds for improvement of programs, purchasing new equipment in the future, helping with supply purchasing as we build programs out and things like that. So those would be grant opportunities that would also support the program every single year. And the other piece I would mention is that Construction Trades, which is a current program, has a wonderful teacher and a lot of existing equipment and supplies that we've really carefully cared for over the years. So even with that program, we've had some savings as we planned it out, with the idea being to obviously keep the great equipment we have and expand it as we expand the space and the opportunities there. So we have tried to be very frugal and also look for opportunities to make sure that the space would be funded well and provide career opportunities, obviously at a cost that the communities could afford. So that's something we've been very cautious about. And the last thing I would also say too is culinary arts in particular has opportunities, as was mentioned, for operating a functional business during lunch times and things like that in the community. And the design plans contain some security components that would allow the community to access that restaurant during the day without having access to the rest of the building. So we could have that be open as a space to mingle with community members, provide another lunch option, give that business component, and have some income that could support the program's cost each year. We would look to expand that into things like catering in the future and things like that as well. Again, with the eye on trying to keep those costs as low as possible. And that, coupled with the tuition we would be charging for the seats given to Messinic and Conval, would also help to contain program costs to some degree in the future. So thank you. That was a really great question. And thank you for the time.
Thank you, David. Mr. Brummer?
I look at this article.
Jed, your name and town, please.
Jed Brummer, Ringe, initially East Jaffrey. Go to both towns. I want to address this question and this initiative as an opportunity for our community and some of the opportunities that we haven't taken in the past. If you go back several years, there was an initiative to have a cooperative school between Peterborough and Jaffrey and Ringe, and that location was now the New Hampshire ball bearing location. That wasn't taken. That could have been a school that would have had all the bells and whistles and so on, but that didn't pass. Nor did the opportunity to build a school between Jaffrey and Ringe, which I think was a missed opportunity. There were businesses that didn't locate in Ringe or Jaffrey, moved to Peterborough because they liked their school system better than ours when they took a look at the facilities, and another missed opportunity. This is an opportunity for our community and for our students. Given only 1/3 of people that graduate from college, from high schools throughout the country, go to college. Fortunately, because of our school system, we rank above 50% percentile in the educational level of our students and our competency. However, we are in the lowest quartile in the state in how we fund public education. That's unfortunate. We need to support our children, our children's children, and I think of what are the costs if we don't support a program like this? It's going to be high, and it's going to reflect on our community and our development. We have a Jaffrey resident who is quite acclaimed in developing citizens, people who speak up for the community, and that's Robert Putnam, national figure, been on national TV. His latest book, his first one being Bowling Alone. The latest book is Community or Die. We need to support this project, not only for those people that are going to be enjoying the education and applying practical experiences in the trades. It's no longer how to swing a hammer. If you're going to be successful in the trades, you have to know CAD, you have to know spreadsheets, and to be able to succeed if you're going to make it in the future. This is an opportunity that I think our community needs now. Thank you.
Thank you, Jed. Yes, ma'am. Your name and town.
Hi, my name's Shayla Nagel. I live in Joffrey, New Hampshire. I currently homeschool all my children. I just have a few questions. Have we looked at offering these programs without doing an expansion? Currently, the school, the middle and high school, has two fully equipped kitchen classrooms, and they're not used like that. How come we can't use those to do culinary arts? That'd be my first question. I think that would be a great program, but I think that could reduce costs if we use the kitchen setups we currently have. The other thing is our builders trades. We've had a great builders trades. We've had a fully equipped shop room there. I know a few years ago, we got rid of a lot of the equipment in there, but it sounds like we still have a lot by what Mr. Dustin said. So that's there. EMT training, could we use a classroom that we have available possibly? Maybe work with the Jaffrey Wrench EMTs and offer training, as well as I'm pretty sure that if you want a job there, do our towns currently offer free training if you're trying to be employed with them? Because if that's the case, we shouldn't be spending more tax dollars to train people who might not be going in our community for that. The other thing you guys mentioned is that these programs would be available to homeschoolers. I'm curious how that would work, because currently, like I said, I homeschool my kids. My kids do sports with the school. However, I just recently had my senior get injured in a game, and he was supposed to have access to the trainer, but he had to sit in the office for a significant amount of time because he was told it's a safety concern for him to walk to the trainer. He had to get escorted. So would it be a very similar thing? If we had a homeschooler come do the program, would they have limited access? So that's one of my concerns. And what was the other? Oh, and talking about the trades, I'm a true believer of the trades. I liked how the gentleman ahead of me said, like, spreadsheets are great, which I think that would be done in a computer classroom. I do know Ringe overwhelmingly has families that own businesses in the trades. Have we thought of maybe talking to some of those families about letting any of the men or women who want to go into the trades possibly job shadow with them and save our district a ton of money? I'm just wondering how many of these avenues we've looked at of not expanding the school when our enrollment kind of looks like it's on a downward trend. So building a whole section might not necessarily be something we need, but we can still offer the programs. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. David Dustin, quite a few questions there. You have the floor.
Yeah, there was a lot of questions there. So the first thing I'll say is that we do, as that citizen stated, we do currently have a space. We have not discarded equipment that is useful to the program. We have certainly upgraded some equipment in recent years with those Perkins funds. So I do want to say that that piece is still being used in terms of the equipment we have there. The space for that particular program is woefully inadequate. Anybody who enters the shop when there is a masonry and plumbing class, excuse me, masonry and carpentry class happening, will see that, for example, with the masonry projects, they're unable to build actual masonry products because that takes a lot of space in the very limited shop. And at the same time, that teacher has other sections like the fundamentals class where they're learning about basic woodworking and tool use, or the carpentry class where they may be erecting, elements of walls and pieces of walls and things like that. So they don't have room for all of the things that are currently being done in there. The teacher has attempted some larger scale projects. Like at one point, he was taking orders for picnic tables of various designs. And if you walked into the shop when that project was happening, it was floor to ceiling picnic tables and no room for the other types of learning that that teacher wanted to be doing with his kids. So the space is not adequate for the programs. We have at one point during the day the fundamentals of construction trades happening in there, a woodworking class with eighth and ninth graders primarily at the same time. And then on some days, we also have a local Peterborough company that's partnered with the school free of charge to us that's doing a heat pump class with some of our kids, and they're getting a certification for that. But the space itself is very small and tight, and it doesn't facilitate the type of learning that we have heard from our program advisory group is needed to get our kids ready. It's more than just spreadsheets like in Excel programs, that we're trying to teach them technology that is used on the actual job site. We're trying to get them through OSHA training. We're trying to have them manipulate some of these things with virtual reality because we don't have them in the shop, and there just isn't room for that type of technology learning. So that's what I would say about the construction program. The space really is not sufficient for what we have heard from our program advisory council is the most needed for those kids to be successful in the field. In terms of the culinary arts program, the kitchens that we have, one of them has been converted into a classroom because one thing we've done very well is gotten rid of space like the modular classrooms that were costing the district money. Those went away several years ago. Of course, the SAU came in and has taken some space over the years, and we've been very good at making use of spaces by chopping them up when need be to make sure that we have the classrooms for our kids. So one of the two kitchens that was formerly only for the middle school has been converted into a STEM program. That's no longer a functional kitchen. The other space is the last family consumer science space we have, which does have 4 kitchen setups. That space is used continuously throughout the day for middle school family consumer science at portions of the day and high school intro to cooking at other portions of the day. And the space is like a home kitchen for each of those setups. It's not really designed to teach culinary arts, large-scale production of food, preparing for catering or things like that. So even if it wasn't already being used kind of to its capacity, it's even used after school. We've got a baking with Baker because the teacher's name is Mr. Baker. There's a baking with Baker club, a cooking with Baker club. Those are packed to the gills as well most days of the week. So we have explored that, but that space, again, is just not, it's not a career space. It's designed to teach kids how to make very limited types of food prep. And I'm not sure what the other questions were at this point. Oh, homeschooler access. I can't respond to whatever that piece was about waiting in the office. I don't know what that is. But I do know that we have homeschoolers who do take advantage of our school's opportunities even now. Sometimes they'll come in and do testing with us. We do have homeschoolers who come for things sometimes like music classes or a science class where they want to get their hands on the lab, or already for our construction trades program. That's the law. We follow the law. And we also believe it's important that even learners who don't spend all of their day in our school have access to the things that their community is offering through our school. So I can't speak to a specific scenario like that. I'm not really sure what to say about that, except that we welcome the opportunity to work with our homeschool families, and we currently do in many ways. So the EMT component, I know that we have a significant shortage of EMTs in our community right now. And anybody who has interacted, we have some contracted services that are working with Jaffrey Ringe Memorial Ambulance because we don't have people here who are getting trained and kind of entering that field in large enough numbers to keep that staffed. So in both our community as well as Conval, that's a significant need. That type of training of getting an actual EMT certification is involved and extensive. And so again, having a program that supports that gives us a pipeline of local individuals with a desire to serve the community through that EMT program. Using an existing classroom, again, is not really appropriate for this type of program. It does require lab space. It requires medical types of simulations and things like that. So again, that was explored, but it's not really feasible with this type of program to make use of a traditional classroom because we would need more modular use of that space. And the only other thing I would mention is that when our kids explore these programs and they're going outside our community to do that, what tends to happen is they stay outside of our community to then engage in that field. And one of the suggestions that came from an early meeting with the state was that we should simply send our children from Jaffrey and Ringe to places like Nashua because Nashua Community College has programs there. To me, that's absurd because our kids deserve to be educated here and they deserve to stay here. And if we offer them the types of trainings and programs that give them careers here, they will stay here. And I think that's one of our big goals that we heard early on in the design phases of this CTE project is the desire to have our children learn, live, and stay here. And I think the more we offer them to do that, the more successful our school and our community's mission is for the future.
Okay, first of all, any questions need to be directed directly to the moderator. What was your question, please? Okay. Please come to the microphone, recognize this gentleman here. Sir, you have the microphone.
My name's Andy DePerry. I live in Rindge. So you know, I'm a graduate of Monty Tech. I went there in '73, the year it opened. I'm a firm believer in technical schools are good for kids today. With that said, do you realize, or have you realized, the reoccurring cost that it's going to take to support materials and FTE to keep all those trades? You haven't even specified what trades you're going to support in this construction trade endeavor. I personally have been involved in building billion-dollar buildings all over the world. I've done industrial electronic security. I just don't see your desire to only have 2 towns supporting that type of a operation. I think it's a whole lot better than offering them nothing. But at this other part of this, the amount of cost it's going to have to support materials for those kids to use, whether it's wood, pipe, wire, plumbing valves. What are you going to offer as far as trades for these kids to learn? Did you ever think of AutoCAD? Because that's all these people use for doing their drawings. Do they know how to read a drawing? I've done industrial electronic security, nuclear plants, retail, military installations, casinos, name it, I've been in them. I don't believe what I believe you're trying to do is admirable. What I don't believe is that these 2 towns are going to be able to support it. The amount of tax money that's going to be required from everybody is going to be substantial. Now, with this gentleman's response about educate them here, they're going to stay here. When I graduated Monty Tech, I left. I spent 30 years in a different state. Then I was traveling all over the world. I didn't stay here. The money's not here. Go to any of these, go to Millipore, go to Teleflex, go to Ball Bearing. You can't make a decent dollar. Again, I think what you're doing is admirable, but I don't think you're going to have enough involvement to make it worth your while.
There was a person on the far right there. Do you still wish to speak, ma'am? Okay, thank you. I don't think it was a question so much as a statement. Yeah. Yes, please, your name and
Kathy Kozlowski from Ringe. And just a couple of questions. At this time, how many students are enrolled at Conant, high school students? That's one question.
Dave, quick answer.
360.
At the high school? Okay. And at this point, with all of the planning, has the needed staff been determined and what those salaries will be? Is that at any point in this planning, or will the salaries come later? And when, if it's approved, would it be completed?
David, you want to answer those questions?
One more?
Well, we've got 2 or 3
Okay.
questions right now, and then we'll go to your final question. David?
So I can answer some of that, and I think I might need Ruben and Carrie to answer some of it. In terms of if it was approved, when it would be completed, that would be estimated to be a 2-year construction timeframe starting as soon as this summer, assuming that the state legislature did move forward with the approval that they typically would give. So the anticipation would be within 2 years, we would be bringing the new programs online. The construction would be planned in such a way so that the existing construction program would not be interrupted during the construction of the new space. So we would continue to offer the construction trades. And I think that was a great question about which ones we're offering as well. Currently, that's carpentry, masonry, plumbing, electrical, and then a heat pump program that's in partnership with Peterborough. And because of our connection with Conval, which also we can bring all of their students, and we do have many students from Conval and Messinic in our program, we also send our students there to do things like their manufacturing program. There's a welding component that our kids have access to. So we've had some students who do our construction trades, and then they continue and get a welding piece. I had a really interesting extended learning opportunity that a student did last year where they completed our construction program, did the welding, and then had this whole automotive piece as well that they had gotten at Messinic, and their ELO was designing a truck that they had on their property back into a usable vehicle. So we've got lots of those other pieces that we can kind of layer onto the program. And that was done in conjunction with a lot of local business partners, which we also, I did want to say, do have. But again, a lot of times what we're offering our students is the basic introduction and the basic skill set where they can then become interns or work part-time effectively or get jobs out of our school. So the staffing question would be more of a Ruben Carey.
How many students are currently going to Conval, their program, or Messinic? Messinic doesn't have a program.
Messinic has an automotive program that our students go to. I don't have the exact numbers off of the top of my head for each program. I know we send busload to Conval throughout the course of the day. So I'm going to say it's approximately 30 students that are traveling between Conval and Messinic from our school. And throughout the course of the year, we're taking, on a normal year, somewhere between 25 to 30 of their students in return. Last year, I believe that we essentially broke even with only having the one program with how we were getting learners from Conval. But don't quote me on the exact numbers. That's an estimate. But we do typically have a few dozen students going each direction.
And with the classes, is there a set size limit, like if it was culinary arts? How many kids would be able to enroll?
That's a great question.
And is that just seniors? Is it juniors?
So the enrollment cap for most of our CTE programs would be 18 students per section, and we'd be able to offer 3 sections of courses each semester. So that is 54 students each semester participating in the programs. What was the second part of that question?
I forgot.
Oh, grade levels. CTE programs are open to learners in grades 10 through 12. So students can start in grade 10, they can pace themselves, they can start a little bit later. If they become a completer in almost any CTE program, because of articulation agreements we have with other organizations, they immediately get post-secondary credit, either at a trade school or a college, depending on who we have the agreement with. Currently, we already have Keene State and some other places lined up for our current programs, but that would expand as well as we added the new programs on.
So for kids that go into one of the programs, what changes with their overall education plan for regular school?
Typically nothing unless there's some sort of an extension into another discipline. Like sometimes we've had students who have utilized construction trades, for example, as a math experience based on how they approached that with their teacher. We have a senior capstone requirement that sort of ties the career components of their school experience, and several kids are doing with our construction teacher some one-on-one capstone projects. So it might adjust in giving them some different opportunity, but because it aligns with our school schedule, they're able to fit that into their coursework, and it doesn't disrupt their day, especially when we're offering the programs at our school and the kids don't have that travel time. It makes it even a little easier. Right now, we are sending, just again, to showcase that we're trying to find opportunities without expanding. We do send students as far as Keene and one currently going to Milford. for programs that they had seats in. But there's a couple of barriers with that. One is obviously the distance and the time. It takes a while to get to Keene and Milford. So the students who do that often do have to give up some other opportunities during the day. And the other piece is that because we're not part of the same region as them, they don't have to give us seats. So if they fill a program, our kids don't get access to that program. So what we have had success getting into is cosmetology, which is one of the reasons we removed that from the initial design based on some feedback and a desire to lower the cost, but also because our kids do have access to that program currently by going to Keene. The one that we never get seats in is culinary arts because that's incredibly popular. And then there's some others that like engineering that can be a little tricky.
I just think it would be helpful for people to know how many kids are involved in any of these programs, be it
Yeah.
at Conval Messinic. And one last, and this one is to Mr. Duncan.
Thank you.
I had listened to, I wasn't able to attend the last school board meeting.
Mhm.
I had listened to part of it. And we all know how crazy Facebook can be and the things that are on it. Some very believable, but you did make the comment that there is a lot of misinformation out there. And if that could be clarified, I think it would be helpful. I don't know what you were referring to, whether it was this program, whether it was the budget, but you had just said a lot of misinformation. So
Sure. Let me answer one of your questions that wasn't answered, was about personnel. So there would be added personnel costs. If you add a couple programs, you would need to add a couple teachers. Also with larger space, you need to add staffing for cleaning. Now, it's not simply a situation where we would put all of that without revenue because we would have about $5,000 coming in per individual from other schools and so forth when they come and take the courses. So plus Perkins funding can help fund some of these, especially in the initial years. And so we already have a construction trades teacher. And so that's already within the budget. And so we look at culinary arts, 1 FTE there, and then the public safety and security with EMT, 1 FTE there. With salary benefits average out, it turns out to be about 100,000 per individual in those teaching capacities. And then you have about, if you had, for instance, your place is full with a 25% population coming from the other schools coming in, about half of that would be paid off by tuition each semester.
Thank you, Ruben. Yes, sir. You have the microphone.
Thank you. My name's Tom Alborn-Sue Jaffrey. I'm a former carpentry and physics teacher, and I used to build nuclear reactors as well. I just want to say I've worked with 15 to 20,000 teachers around the world, and the one thing in common in all of the districts I've worked in is the need to build relevant CTE programs and integrate them into the education. So when kids are learning mathematics, it's not, Joe has 6 apples minus 4 oranges, what's left? You need practical things that kids can say, hey, I know why I might need to learn this. And so we have an opportunity to get the state to pay 3/4 of the cost of something virtually every school system in the country is looking for. It will help our kids, it will help our communities, and more than the kids in the CTE program will benefit. And so I would just urge people to think about the future, think about how much both the community and the kids will benefit and to support the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Seeing no one else at the microphone, and since no amendments were offered, I will close discussion on warrant article number 2, and I will instruct our district clerk to ensure exact wording of the warrant article as you have before you and as read. So this will appear in the town ballot, the school district ballot rather, on March 11th. I'll accept a motion to reconsideration. Okay, name it, sir. Okay, and second. I know you are, Dan. Okay, is there a second to that motion? Your name, sir?
Craig Clark.
Thank you, Greg. Okay, all those in favor of restricting reconsideration, simply hold up your card and say aye. Opposed? So carried. Warrant Article 2, Warrant Article 3, rather. Shall the school district vote to raise and appropriate as an operating budget, not including appropriations by special warrant articles and other appropriations voted separately, the amounts set forth on the budget posted with the warrant or as amended by vote of the first session for the purposes set forth therein totaling $33,760,452. Should this article be defeated, the default budget shall be $33,858,458, which is the same as the last year, with certain adjustments required by previous action of the school district or by law, where the governing body may hold one special meeting in accordance with RSA 40:13, section 10 and 16, to take up the issue of the revised operating budget only. Chris, chairperson of the school board, you have the floor.
Thank you, Bob. And thanks to all of you who've made the time to be here this evening to hear about and discuss these important articles. I'm here to present Article 3, which is our operating budget. Each year, when we start this months-long process of budget development, we consider our priorities for the upcoming year and ensure they are aligned with the district's goals. We also seek to balance our goals with the understanding of the challenges we face in public education and the knowledge that our schools are primarily funded by our local property taxes. For 2025-26, our budget priorities are simple. Number one, retain our highly qualified educators. Our teachers are the key to achieving the academic growth that we expect our schools to deliver. Number two, continue the educational improvement initiatives that we've already put into place. Some recent examples of investments in educational improvement are universal pre-K, our new literacy curriculum, and rolling out STEM programming to all district schools. There are no new positions or initiatives being funded in our proposed budget. These two budget priorities will support the district's proficiency goals in the 2025-2026 school year. Next slide, please. This slide shows the changes in next year's proposed budget from this year's adopted budget. There is a $590,000 increase for our Jaffrey Ringe Education Association employees that was approved on the 2024 warrant, along with $380,000 of health and dental insurance increases. Salary and insurance increases for all employees that are not part of an agreement total $225,000. Transportation costs have increased by $188,000. Our JRSSA support staff will be receiving an additional $180,000 in increases as required by their collective bargaining agreement. Special education costs will rise by $117,000 due to out-of-district placement tuition increases. I'll make a note here that the increase in our special education costs is smaller than we've experienced in previous years, and this can be directly attributed to investments that we've made in our ILC classrooms to address these needs within our district schools. We've also achieved $316,000 of reductions through some changes to our budgeting practices. For example, we're assuming that individuals may select a single plan versus a more expensive plan for healthcare and adjusting our budget accordingly. All of this adds up to an increase of $1.34 million for the 2025-2026 school year. Next slide, please. For those that may not be familiar, a default budget is the budget that takes effect if the proposed budget fails to pass. It is based on the previous year's operating budget and includes adjustments for debt service, contracts, and other obligations. One-time expenditures that aren't needed in the coming year, contractual increases like collective bargaining agreements and capital project default amounts. The 2025-26 default budget is $3.86 million, an increase of $1.44 million to the current budget and $98,000 greater than the proposed budget. Next slide, please. This graph shows the 2024-2025 adopted budget against the 2025-2026 default and proposed budgets. The dollar amount increases are as shown on the previous slides and are a 4.43% and 4.13% increase over the current adopted budget, respectively. Next slide, please. I'd like to spend the next few minutes talking about the local tax impact of the proposed operating budget. As shown on the chart, in 2023-24, the actual local tax rate was $17.08 for Jaffrey and $15.71 for Ringe. 2024-2025 saw local school taxes decrease in both towns, Jaffrey by 86 cents and Ringe by a penny. Our 2025-2026 proposed budget carries an estimated tax increase of $3.45 per $1,000 of assessed value for Jaffrey and $2.24 for Ringe. Those are significant tax increases for a budget increase of 4.13%. Why are the estimated taxes increasing so much with the proposed budget? The increased burden on the towns is the result of two factors. The first is the budget increase. I've reviewed that in detail on the previous slides. The other is a decrease in state revenue to the district. In this budget, we are estimating a decrease of $0.56 million from state sources. How New Hampshire funds public education is a topic that is being discussed in our legislature, courtrooms, and in school districts all over the state. It is not something that our local school board can control, but I'd like to show you how it impacts the amount of money that local taxes contribute to our district. Next slide, please. On this graph, you'll see how our schools are funded. The district receives our operating budget revenue almost exclusively from state sources and local property sources, taxes. In 2020 to 2021, the bar on the left, you'll see that the state provided 36% of the district's funding, with local property taxes paying for 63%. If you move ahead 5 years into the right bar showing our proposed budget, you'll see that the state will provide 23% of funding and local property taxes will pay for 73%. Over the course of 5 years, our state funding has decreased by $1.5 million, with the state's share falling by 13%. If the state had chosen to maintain funding at a level of even 33%, as it had for decades until starting a decline in 2022, our local tax burden would fall by $3.4 million. As I stated before, this funding formula is not under control of the school board, and I'm not here tonight to advocate for any changes, but just to show our district voters a real-life example of how these policies can impact local school taxes. One thing that our school board can control is the amount in our operating budget. While much of our budget is dedicated to fulfilling federal and state requirements for an adequate education and special education services, we do have discretion over how much we spend and a responsibility to our taxpayers to ensure that our budget is both fair and reasonable. One way that we can evaluate that is to compare our cost against other districts in the state. Next slide, please. Here you see the Jaffrey Ringe per pupil cost measured against other local and comparable districts over a period of 8 years. These districts face many of the same challenges that we do, including, and most significantly, declining enrollment. Over this period, our per pupil cost has remained below the state average and compares favorably to most of the other districts. However, It doesn't tell the whole story with how we stack up against other districts in the state. Next slide, please. The chart and table shown behind me provide additional detail on our cost per pupil in the Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District. Displayed on the graph are the preschool to grade 12 per pupil costs of all 161 districts in New Hampshire, each represented by a dot. At the left, the highest cost per pupil in the state is almost $45,000, while there is one district near to $15,000 at the other end of the chart. You'll see that for preschool to 12, our cost of $20,656, depicted as the larger orange dot and labeled JRCSD, ranks us as the 125th most expensive district out of the 161 total in the state. We are in the lowest 22% for overall per pupil spending. The table below the chart breaks out our cost per pupil by elementary, middle, and high school levels. Starting with elementary, our district is above the state average, but ranks 86th out of 154, putting us in the bottom 44%. For Conant Middle School, that cost dips below the state average and is ranked 44th out of all 62 middle schools, in the bottom 29% for per pupil spending. Conant High School is almost $4,000 below the state average and ranks 68th out of 72 high schools in the state. There are only 4 high schools in the state of New Hampshire that spend less per pupil than we do at Conant. Reviewing this data is one way that I can confirm that our cost in the Jaffrey Ringe Cooperative School District is fair and reasonable. I hope you see this as well. Next slide, please. In summary, our proposed budget amount is $33.76 million. It's an increase of $1.34 million and 4.13% to the current budget. The proposed budget is $98,000 below the default budget and allows the district to retain staff and continue all educational improvement initiatives. Thank you for listening, and I'm going to hand the microphone back to our moderator for discussion.
Moderators are supposed to be neutral, but I want to share with you that I substitute taught last year over at the grade school and also at the middle school and high school. You have damn good teachers. At this point, I'd like to open up the microphone for discussion, questions, and any amendments. I see a gentleman coming up already. Take your time. Your name, sir?
My name is Dan Aho from Ringe, New Hampshire. And I'm here. I think Charlie probably knows that I'm very conservative. And I would like to make a motion to amend Article 3 to change the number from $33,760,452 to $30,760,452.
Can I have that ready?
Exactly 3 million.
Okay, so the motion you're making is, shall we delete $33,760,452 and insert $30,760,452? Is that correct? Okay, everyone clear on the amendment? Is there a second to that amendment? Who yelled that out, sir? Bob, thank you. Sir, would you talk to the amendment, please?
That's all I'll speak at this point.
Okay.
And we'll let others speak up and explain their feelings of why, but I can just say that Brookline last year was much higher scoring than we were, and their budget was 27 million. So I don't see why we can't live with 30 million. That's an increase over that. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Roberta Acer, Main Street Ringe. Interestingly enough, there was a bunch of slides on I've been on the district website for a month. And there were some interesting slides on there today that when I went back to print a couple of them, they were gone. And that's been happening all month. You know, there'll be financial information. I go, oh, I'm going to print that. So that it's really bizarre. But one of the interesting slide was about the cost per student to our taxpayers is pretty easy to figure out when the enrollment is projected to be around 1,100. So that's 30,000 a head. I know you don't count that. It's like comparing interest rates. But some years ago, we had 1,400 students and our budget was 28 million. That's pretty easy to figure too, 20,000 a head. But then something happened. We reduced our teachers by 13, but now we have 23 more staff members. So we've increased staff from the 2019 of 241 to now we have 259. That's a pretty drastic increase with enrollment continuing to go down. The proposed budget will tax people out of their homes. With the reval coming this year, many people that in Ringe that have virtually no taxes because of the elderly discount, it's going to get wiped out. So their tax bill is probably going to go from $600 to $1,600, which on $35,000 a year, it's pretty steep. The other thing I wanted to address, there was some stuff on Facebook, and it was talking about the test scores, the ELA, or whatever you want to call it. And it was suggested to look at other small districts. And if you look at miserable scores, that ours look better. So I pulled up just one small district, Hollis Brookline. Oh, I know it's a rich district. However, their budget, they have 1,115 students. Their budget was what Dan just mentioned, 27.5 million. They spend a lot less on their students, and their test scores are off the charts. 77%, 62%, 52% in science, whereas ours, this was last year, 47, 32, and 27. So throwing money at it is not the answer. So, you know, you have to reach a balance between what we can afford and the education that's delivered. Thank you.
Hey, Leslie, would you like to speak first before this gentleman? Leslie is our district clerk.
I am Leslie McLean, and I live in Jaffrey. I would just like to point out that $1 in 2020 is now $1.22. So please don't just compare the flat numbers without taking into account inflation. That is incredibly unfair to everybody. $1 that was spent in 2020 is now $1.22 to get the same value. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. John, do you wish to speak to the comment that was made by the gentleman?
Yes, John McCarthy, Jaffrey. So I guess I think that there's some things that a lot of us don't know, especially those out in the community. They know that their taxes are going up, and we're all taxpayers on the school board. And I guess the thing is that it's hard to understand what our educators are going through. What are the things that they're dealing with on a day-to-day basis? And there's a lot of things. There's home life situations that are unfortunate, that are difficult. Families that are single-parent families where maybe the father or the mother is working way too many hours to be home with their kids. And the children come into school and they bring with them all of the challenges that entails. Some kids come in without having had breakfast, and others come in without any money for lunch. Others come in with some kind of a psychic problem, something that's going on with them that makes it hard for them to self-regulate when they get into class. And so I don't know if the word is the right word, but they freak out a little bit, and then the whole class gets disrupted. And one thing I just like this group to hear from me, my neighbors here, that our teachers, our staff in general, our principals, they do an amazing job of trying to reach all of our kids. Not only do they try and prevent the disruptions that keep kids from learning, but they also don't forget the kids who are causing the disruptions. They try and help them deal with whatever psychological or physical problem they brought to school. And I guess I'd like to just read one quick thing from the team that came to evaluate the Conant Middle High School 2 years ago. The New England Association of Schools and Colleges. They came in and did a 2-year reaccreditation study to see if Conant Middle High School deserves to be accredited as a high school in the United States. And it's a pretty rigorous process. A team of 4, 5, 6 people comes in for maybe a week or two. Before they come in, the school administration prepares a very detailed report on the curriculum and on all the programs that they're working on to try and address reading and math and science. We just went through this process, finished it up just recently. And the chairperson of the team that came in to evaluate Conant, gentleman by the name of Paul Mangelinks, he had this to say. He said, as a personal note, I've chaired more than 40 school accreditation visits for the New England Association of Schools and Colleges over the past 2 decades. And yours is the first school I've experienced that has accomplished as much as you have following a collaborative conference, and where the professional staff has so wholeheartedly embraced the process. While it's not required of me as a chair, I am personally going to share the impressions of our team and of your amazing school improvement story in a personal report to the Director for Accreditation and School Improvement at NEASC. Conant Middle High School is a living example of how the collaborative accreditation process should work, and you and your accomplishments serve as an excellent role model
for other schools throughout New England. Now, I bring this today because I'm not a big Facebook person, but I hear about stuff that's on social media. And a lot of people think that our schools aren't doing a good job. I think they're getting misinformation. And I just wanted to make that point. I think we are extremely fortunate to have the staff that we have. Extremely fortunate. If you knew more about some of the initiatives that our staff and teachers are doing to try and address the needs of all of our kids, I think you'd realize how lucky we are. And then just the last thing, I'll finish up. I'm sorry if I'm taking a lot of time. The data
Excuse me one second, John. John is on the school board. He's sharing information relative to what's been said. For this reason, because it's part of an educational process, he has more than 3 minutes. What we're asking for is for the voters to make their comments, amendments, or ask questions. They've had 3 minutes, and so far they've done very nicely. John, please finish up.
I just want to say that the data that Chris Radcliffe, our chairperson, presented, that's taken from the website of the New Hampshire Department of Education. It's there for anybody to see. Go on the Department of Education website and put cost per student. You'll get a chart very quickly. And you'll see that what Chris told you is right. We're among the lowest cost per student districts in the state.
Thank you, John.
All right, thank you.
Sir, before you approach a microphone, that gentleman over there, you don't wish to speak now? All right, sir, you have the microphone. Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Kevin Swift, and I live in Jaffrey. Over the last 10 years, we've been coming to these deliberative sessions, and we are continually impressed by how frugal our board is and how well-crafted the budgets have been. No one wants to pay more for anything. Unfortunately, the cost of everything is going up. And a lot of those costs are required of us, and we have to pay those based on state regulations and federal regulations. And a lot of those things protect some of our most vulnerable students. It is completely unacceptable to me to suggest taking money away from children so that we can have a little bit more. The children are incredibly important. And yes, I have 3 kids in the school right now, and they certainly benefit from the education that they're getting. But this is being my stance for all time. We have to educate the children in the future. We have to take care of them because they're going to be the ones to take care of us. And I want to thank the board. I want to thank the administration for all the time and an immense amount of effort that they do to put together a budget that is fair, that is balanced. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, please. Your name and town.
I'm Arwen Meller. I live here in Ringe. I just want to kind of follow up what he said now, but none of us want to spend money. I don't have money. I do have a kid in the system, and I think he's, as of recently, getting a very good education because he has chosen to invest in himself. And that is thanks to the teachers in our system who chose to invest in him, as well as all of us voters who've also chosen to invest in this whole system. If we stop investing, we will not get a return. I think, as he said, they take care of us if we take care of them. To just randomly come up here after our school board has done months and months of research and personal investment in time and energy and thoughts to come up with as small a budget as they can, to come up here and just say, take 3 million off. Well, I can't do that in the grocery store. I can't do that at the car dealership. I can't do that anywhere, and we can't do it here. We need to invest.
Aha, I was waiting for that to happen.
It hurts to be short. Okay. Thank you. There we go. My name's Jane Fedorowicz. I live in Ringe.
Could you get a
And-
little bit closer to the microphone,
Okay,
please?
my name is Jane Fedorowicz. I live in Ringe. And I have the same type of comment to make on the proposed motion to lower the amount of the total budget. We're talking about a 10% decrease if that amendment is approved. If we look at here, only half of that, $1,034,000, is a part of the current budget proposal increase. So if we think about it as a family, if you were anticipating a raise to support your family as inflation affects all of us, and we're suddenly told instead of an increase, you're going to have to take a 10% cut in your budget, that's not going to come easy. And it's not going to come easy for schools as well, because we have contracts. We have things that we must do to the schools. The things that are cuttable are going to be the things that hurt the students the most. Things like after-school events, things like sports programs, things that are not in part of the actual basic educational purpose of a school system. And we don't want that to happen to our kids. Our kids deserve a full, well-rounded extracurricular and co-curricular set of activities to take it part of. So I propose that we do not approve, I suggest we do not pass this amendment because as Arwen said, this is a well thought out budget with a lot of cut corners already. We cannot afford to cut it any further. Thank you.
Thank you.
Max Giese, 31 Michael Drive, Range.
Hey, Max, I think the district clerk will want to make sure they get the correct spelling of your name.
You got it.
Go ahead, sir.
So Roberta gave a lot of facts or her data, and you addressed, yeah, there's been inflation. We get it. You know, $1 5 years ago is not $1 today. But can we address the staffing that she cited? So our enrollment's gone down and our teachers have gone down, but the staffing is going up. You know, our staff to pupil is going way up, yet our test scores compared to Hollis Brookline were well below. And they're able to achieve that with a much lower budget. Why are we going to say that, yeah, they can do that with that budget? They could do that with that staff, but we can't do that. I'm not saying everyone's not trying. I'm not saying that we don't have great staff, but we have to be efficient and we have to be smart with our tax dollars. We talk about a, CTE program so that the kids can stay in the community. These kids coming out don't have a shot when they can't afford to live in the communities because the taxes are through the roof. In addition to, like you said, the dollars going up and the cost of housing going through the roof. So I would like us to try to be more efficient. I would like us to look at other avenues. And I'm touching on something that's closed, and I realize that, and I apologize in advance. But we have a shop teacher who's a jack of all trades, master of none, teaching these different trades to 54 students, if I'm correct in that. I look out here and I see PhD level guys in every trade you can think of. We've got concrete, we've got electrical, we've got gutters, we've got plumbers. Could we not look at a program where one day a week they actually go on the job training with these companies? They used to do that, back 20 years ago in Florida, where part of the day you actually had work apprenticeship programs. I was an air traffic controller for 13 years. I went through the air traffic control school. They said, congratulations, you're an air traffic controller. But the real learning, it was on the job training at the facilities. I could go through school for 10 years, but until I went to that facility, until I sat behind that scope, until I worked real traffic, I wasn't an air traffic controller. So I think we should think outside the box. I think we should try to maximize efficiency. And I think we shouldn't be so quick to say, well, it's state money. If I give you a yacht, I say, hey, you know what? I'm not even going to tell you 25%. You got to pay for it. Here's a $20 million yacht. It does you no good if the ongoing operating costs for that of 1 or 2 million a year you can't afford. So there's other costs besides just putting it up. It is an ongoing budget issue that's going to be forever. So yeah, the state's going to throw some cash at it, but we're going to shoulder the burden for years and years to come. So I think we need to really take a step back, look into this and say, why can they do it in Brookline Hollis, but we can't do it here? And then let's have some real facts about what the population at the school is, why staff is going up as much as it is, and why we can't do what they're able to do. That's all I got. I'm not in favor of taxes going up. I know there's a lot of people in this town that are barely getting by. Like you said, $1's not going as far as it used to. That's also for the taxpayers. So I'm in favor of the budget being decreased. And yeah, thank you for your time.
John, before Chris, you'd like to address the gentleman's comments?
I'll happily defer.
Yeah, just neglected to address Roberta's comments before, and it was brought up again. So I want to make sure I don't neglect it one more time. The data that I look at and I'm very familiar with. I've been working with it for, this is kind of my job, right? Hollis Brookline is close to us, but they are more expensive than us. I think that's the data. You can come talk to me afterwards if you like. You can decide who to believe. We are slightly cheaper. And, as far as student performance, I think it would be very informative for everybody here to watch the recording of our school board meeting from Monday night. We had a few principals there. We know there's questions out there at community, and we know the answers to some of this, but we're looking to inform people in the community about these questions. We know you have questions. Why aren't our test scores like these other towns? And I would say to you, please take the time to inform yourselves. There are barriers that children in our towns face, when compared to these more affluent towns in the state. And John touched on some of those. Generally speaking, students that come from communities and families that support education perform better. As far as staffing, am I losing the microphone here? As far as staffing, we know that we've seen increased behaviors and special needs throughout the last 10 years. That's been a trend, not in our school, not just in our school, but throughout the country. So many of those positions you're going to see the teachers going down as we've right-sized our district with declining enrollment. And per federal requirements, we have had to add support staff in most cases to meet those requirements so that our children that have needs that we need to meet by law, their needs are met. So that's a brief explanation. I don't know if I got everything there or if anybody else has anything to add.
No, I think you did a good job, Chris. The other ads that we have had in the last couple of years from a staffing standpoint were investments that have actually resulted in saving the district about $500,000 a year so far, and will, as long as we are successful and continue to go down that road, continue to save us that. We have opened up 2 programs one program, but 2 sections of that program over in the Jaffrey Grade School that serves both the Ringe town as well as the Jaffrey town, and learners who have specific needs that typically would be going out of district placements, having costs far higher, leaving our district. We were able to successfully keep them here, keep them integrated with their friends, work through the course of years to be able to get them back into the classrooms. And as a side effect, it also has had a significant financial benefit. So we have added some staff to actually, and it has resulted in decreasing our future costs. We've done several initiatives like that to make sure that we're being as fiscally responsible as we possibly can. That's just one more piece of information.
Okay. Sir, thank you for your patience. You were next.
Bob, Mark is not going to be able to easily move. Can I take him a microphone so he can
You like-
speak? Then I would happily take the next spot
Real
before
fine.
Mr. Sterling comes
Mark,
after.
1 second. We're bringing the microphone over to you.
Right
Right over there, Leslie.
Thank you for your consideration, sir.
Hello? Okay.
We can hear you.
I am a retired educator. I was a special education teacher for 43 years. What I dealt with 43 years ago and what I dealt with 2 years ago are drastically different. I'm not talking about special needs kids. I'm talking about the general population. The general population comes to school with many, many issues, some of which can be resolved at home and are, and some are not. And when we're comparing Jaffrey Ringe to Hollis Brookline, I happened to apply there and I did some research. Hollis Brookline is predominantly chemists and engineers that live there. I'm not saying anything derogatory toward our school district because all my children got a fabulous education here. But we have to be very careful when we're cutting budgets that the school board has probably spent 4 to 5 months researching and developing. So I would like to finish by saying I do not support a 10% decrease in the budget. It will not do what people think it's going to do because I could be wrong, but there's a very small percentage of our budget that is cuttable. A lot of it is electricity, fuel, salaries, and all those sorts of things. So if this budget were cut this much, there would be disastrous outcomes for the students that we say we want to support. Thank you.
And now, sir, you have the microphone.
Well, thank you very much. CFO, I knew you would. I'm still Dan Whitney from Ringe, Butterfield Road. You might remember that from Saturday. Okay. If one is a direct question, a second may be a point of order, and then a comment. If the budget is moved to 30,700,000, whatever that number was that Mr. Aho put forth, projection for the default, give or take. I'm not going to ask anybody to give me an exact dollar figure, but my expectation is that that would also drop by approximately $3 million. Gordon, help me.
Default would stay the same.
Thank you. So the default budget would still be on the budget on the ballot for 33,008,1. Point two, I see some faces around here that I agree with, some that I don't agree with, and we've been doing this dance for over 30 years together now. I always say, I don't usually go 2 years going to town meeting or district meeting without learning something or changing my mind on something. But on this particular core issue, at the point we're at now, my sense of this body is folks are pretty sure in their decisions as to how they want to vote on this amendment. So I would ask to move the question at this point.
Okay. Before we take a motion before I accept the motion, there's another gentleman there behind. Tom. Okay, Tom, you have the floor, and then I'll call the question, and then I have an announcement. Tom?
I'll be quick. Tom Alborn, Sue Jaffrey. I just want to make sure that people make decisions on facts and not hearsay. Chris, would you please look up the per pupil spending for Brookline Hollis? Because the average income in Brookline Hollis is $163,000 compared to $94,000 in Jaffrey. Okay? The average, only 1% of the kids in Brookline Hollis are on free and reduced lunch, whereas 20% of our kids are. You are not comparing apples to apples, as the previous gentleman said. Our families are working. They can't always afford to read to their kids. So do you have that number, Chris?
Yes, for Hollis Brookline Cooperative, the middle and high school cost, except I think they have an elementary school and then a co-op with the middle and high school. Both figures are higher than ours.
Can you give me the actual?
Yeah,
I just need a
it's
number.
for the co-op, the preschool through 12 cost is $21,086.
Hmm.
And for the elementary school, it's $21,006 and
So-
67 cents if you want
And
to.
so for the high school, it's also higher than ours.
Their high school is probably about $4,000 to $5,000 per pupil higher. That's correct.
And so they're starting with a better population, easier to, they're starting with a wealthier population, and they're spending more money than we are. So I'm not sure I understand the reasoning of the people bringing that amendment, because I think they should check their facts. Thank you.
Okay, a request was made to call the question. However, I don't see anybody at the microphone at this point, but via protocol, I will accept the motion. We're going to move it. We're going to move it. All those in. Yeah, 5, we have a request for a secret ballot, but you need 5. No, I didn't, because I have a question. Bob Hamilton? Yes, sir. It says, we, the undersigned registered voters of Ringe Jaffrey, do respectfully request a secret ballot on JRCSD warrant Article 3. I'm assuming this is on the amendment. Is that correct? Okay, that wasn't listed. I checked with legal counsel and he concurs. This is probably the reason. So let me explain what's going to happen. I'm going to read the amendment. We're going to be voting secret ballot. Please do not get up yet. The ballot box is over there. The amendment is this. Shall we delete $33,760,452 and insert, this will be for next year's operating budget, $30,760,452. If you are in favor of the amendment, to reduce the amount, you will want to vote yes by tearing off the orange card. That'd be A. It's got to be A. If you are opposed to the warrant article amendment, you want to vote no, and that would be the A. So what we're going to do, the polls will be open until everybody in this room has voted. I'm going to ask for Carl Pruder. Carl, are you over there? Carl is a select board member for Ringe. I'm going to ask Mr. Moderator, from the former moderator for the town of Jaffrey Ringe, to come up also and oversee the ballot counting. The polls again will be open until everybody's voted. We will check to make sure that everybody has voted, and then we will announce it. So if you would please line up.
Fucking hell.
Has everyone voted? Okay. If you have already voted, would you please take your seats and we will continue? Yes, I did. I voted. Folks, would you please take your seat? I'll explain to you what's going to happen now. First of all, has everyone voted? Is there anyone who has not voted? Assuming everyone has voted, the polls are closed, and I'll ask Select Board Member Carl Pruder and former town moderator Mark Teeger to count the ballots. They will then let me know what the vote outcome is, and I will announce that. We're going on now. You've tackled the two primary warrant articles. One comment was made, which was not addressed, and I wanted to ask Leslie McLean, our school district clerk, to provide an answer. Leslie, you have the floor.
Hi, I am the district clerk, but I'm also the school's business analyst. Part of my job is overseeing the website. In the past year, we have decentralized this role so we can update our website much quicker. And I hope you've all visited it. You'll see that we put up new banners. We have carousel pictures. Each school is responsible for updating their own page as quickly as possible. I do want to address the comment was made that reports and figures disappear from the website. That is not true. We work very hard to put current information on the website. The only time something is taken down is it's factually incorrect, which has not happened in the past year that I know of. It has not happened. The second, things may be taken down because they were posted in draft. For example, the draft financial filings were posted until we had the whole school board sign them, and they were posted around town. And then the actual executed agreements were posted. We do not take down information. If you believe something has been taken down, please call me directly. My extension is 291. I will talk to you. We will find it, rectify the problem, or correct your misinformation. Thank you.
Thank you, Leslie. Okay, we're going to move on to warrant Article 4. I think you've nicely and respectfully covered the two major warrant articles, Articles 2 and Article 3. Article 4 reads as follows. Shall the school district vote to ratify the cost items included in the collective bargaining agreement modification reached between the Jaffrey Ridge Cooperative School District and the Jaffrey Ridge Education Association, which calls for the following increases in salaries and benefits to the amount previously approved by voters at the current staffing levels over the amount paid in the prior fiscal year. For the fiscal year upcoming 2025 to 26, the estimated increase is $20,776. And for the fiscal year 2026 to 27, the estimated increase is $20,774. And to further raise and appropriate the sum of $20,776 for the 2025-26 fiscal year, such sum representing the additional cost attributable to the increase in salaries and benefits required by the new agreement over those that would be paid at current staffing levels. Sandy Stewart will present the perspective from the school board. Sandy, you have the floor.
Yeah, for the short person.
Are you short?
Yeah. I want to thank everybody for coming. I really appreciate this large attendance. I think this is very valuable. So in trying to retain and fill nursing positions, the school district and the Jaffrey Ringe Education Association met and made some wage changes and language to retain our current nursing staff and to hire for difficult to fill positions. The wage scale was made solely for the nursing staff. This wage scale is set up similarly to the rest of the professional staff. It provides different lanes based on the number of years with the district and their education. We are in our second year of a 3-year collective bargaining agreement with the Jaffrey Ringe Education Association. This was on the ballot and approved on March 12th, 2024. The increase to that approved contract amount would be $20,776 for the 25-26 year and $20,774 for the 26-27 year. During the summer, we had interviews with several qualified applicants for these nursing positions, but ultimately the applicants felt they would be taking a significant reduction in their take-home pay, and we could not fill it. We currently have a nurse in each school. We do have a nurse from a staffing agency in the Ringe Memorial School. I feel that the students need to have a consistent nurse on staff, one that will get to know the students like the parents know the students. A nurse from a staffing agency, in addition, is also very expensive. The school board recommends this article and encourages you to vote in support of this article. Thank you.
Okay. Leslie,
May I speak to the
you may speak, yes.
Leslie McLean from Jaffrey? As part of a project I was doing with the nurses, I sat in the high school office, the school nursing office, for about 15 minutes. 10 children came in during that time. The phone rang constantly, and the 2 nurses at the Jaffrey, at the high school and middle school were constantly engaged and busy. These are very good, skilled professionals who are working very hard, and we need to retain the best.
Thank you, Leslie. Seeing no one else at the microphone, I sense you are comfortable with the wording of warrant article 4 as read. Do you wish me to read it again? Do you wish me to read it again? No, thank you. Okay, Leslie, I will instruct you please to ensure the wording for warrant article 4 is exactly as it appears here for both the towns of Jaffrey and Ringe. Warrant article 5. Yes. I'll go along with that. Is there a second to that? Who seconded it? Say again? Patricia Martin from Ringe, thank you. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration on warrant article 4 indicate so by saying aye. Opposed? You've restricted reconsideration, thus declared. Thank you very much. Warrant article 5. Shall the school district, if article 4 is defeated, authorize the governing body to call one special meeting at its option to address article 4 cost items only? Probably does not require discussion. In effect, if warrant article 4 at the polls, whether it's amended or not, if it fails, article 5 would then call for a special school district meeting at its option. So I will not even ask for a motion to restrict reconsideration on this one. This is This is a done deal, so to say. Warrant Article 6. Shall the school district vote to raise and appropriate up to $50,000 to be placed in the expendable trust fund established in 2005, known as the Special Education Contingency Fund, created for the purpose of building a reserve for unanticipated special education costs, with such amount to be funded from the June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1st. John McCarthy? You wish to speak to this? Charlie? Article 6. You're going to speak to it, Charlie? All right. Charlie Iker from the school board.
For those of you who know me, if I'm speaking, you know I'm going to mention unfunded mandates at some point in time. I'm sorry? Okay. 99% of special education costs is a result of state and federal mandates. The reason I say 99.9% is there's bound to be something that's not mandate, but I haven't found it yet. Our special education budget is a little over 10 million, or approximately 1/3 of the entire budget. We only received $675,000 in revenue from the state and federal government. We provide services to 234 students, or 22% of our enrollment. Of these, 24 or 10% are placed out of district. We also provide special education services to 20 charter school students. Article 6 provides for the addition of $50,000 to the Special Education Contingency Trust Fund. The $50,000 will come from year-end surplus, if there is any. And if there is a surplus of less than $50,000, the amount added to the trust will be less. There's a balance of $520,462 in a trust fund already. The trust fund is used for unanticipated special education expenses. For example, if a special needs student transfers into our district and we are unable to provide the needed services, we might need to place the student out of district at a cost of $200,000 per year, plus transportation cost of $272 a day. Or we might have to place the student in a residential facility for approximately $500,000 a year. Another example, if a special needs student moves into Jaffrey or Ringe and attends a charter school, we receive no state aid for that student. However, we have to do testing and referral at a cost of $3,000. We have to pay $60 an hour for special education services at the charter school. If the charter school doesn't provide the services and we can provide the services, we have to pay $130 a day for transportation. Again, the state mandates that we are responsible for providing special education for students residing in our district. The state reimburses us for part of the catastrophic costs of educating students with significant disabilities. They used to cover 87% of the cost over $70,000. Now they've reduced it to 67.5% of the cost over $75,000. That will cost local taxpayers at least $28,000 more per year. So the school board recommends approval of this warrant article.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there any discussion from the floor? Okay, I'm sensing you're comfortable with the wording of Article 6. I'll ask our district clerk to ensure the wording appears on the ballot in both Ringe and Jaffrey. Motion to restrict reconsideration? Okay, is there a second? Second? Pat Martin, your name, sir, again? You have it? Okay. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration on Article 6, please indicate so by saying aye. Opposed? Thank you. Thus declared. We have the results of the warrant amendment on warrant article number 3, which was to reduce the budget to $30,760,452. There were 319 votes cast. There were 185 yes votes, 134 no votes. The amendment passes. Now, at this particular point, the warrant article, were it approved by this body tonight, would reflect the new budget totaling $30,760,452. Further discussion on the amended warrant article. Well, we haven't indicated that we're going to close it yet, but I'm seeing no one at the microphone, so I will then close discussion. I'll accept the motion to restrict reconsideration of warrant article 3, excuse me, as amended. Who moved it, please? Roberta Oster from Ringe? Okay, who seconded it, please? Thank you. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration of warrant article 3 as amended, signify so by saying aye. Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. We've restricted reconsideration. Our last warrant article for the night, Article 7. Shall the school district vote to raise and appropriate up to $400,000 to be placed in the capital reserve fund created for the reconstruction and repair of real estate, buildings, and capital equipment of the district established in 1990 and amended 1999, with such amount to be funded from the June 30 fund balance available for transfer on July 1st. John McCarthy, you have the floor, representing the school board.
Thanks, Bob. Okay, if we could have the next slide. Just, we're dealing with some very old buildings here. Our middle school dates back over 100 years. Our Jeffrey Grade School dates back to 1937. And this school and the high school, both of them in the 50-year range. So as your representatives on the school board, we have done everything we can to try to maintain these schools and protect the assets of the district. And so,
folks, could we please keep it down to a low roar while John speaks? Thank you.
So we've been working on that on a regular basis. You'll see a few things up there that we've worked on this year, but there's been dozens of projects, some of them small, some of them fairly large. A lot of these projects come up unexpectedly. It's, an emergency repair is needed for something. And so we rely on the Building Maintenance Trust Fund to try and keep enough money available to keep these buildings not only running, but in good shape. The idea of trying to protect our investment for the future. So that's what this 400,000 is for. We probably could use a lot more than that, but this is something to replenish the funds that have been spent recently in this past year and before that. For the coming year, a couple of things that we're hoping to work on is replacing windows, parking lot lights at CMHS, a main entrance canopy out here where we have sometimes falling ice that is a real danger to people coming in to visit, or even some of our learners. Track resurfacing at the athletic field, and then really responding to emergencies. So We think this is a prudent investment in our buildings and hope you agree. Thank you.
Whoops.
I'm sorry. I apologize. I forgot to mention, this would be funded from any reserve that's left at the end of the year. If there is no reserve, well, then this won't be paid.
Any discussion from the floor? All right, seeing none, I sense you're comfortable with the wording of warrant Article 7 as read. And I'll instruct the school district clerk to ensure that Article 7 appears on your ballot in Ringe and Jaffrey as you had it read to you. Accept a motion to restrict reconsideration on warrant Article 7. Your name, sir? Alan, Heather? Okay, a second? Name, sir? Mark, thank you very much. All those in favor of restricting reconsideration signify so by saying aye. Opposed? Thus declared that we've restricted reconsideration. Folks, this is probably the largest turnout of voters at a deliberative session. I've been moderator now for about 10 years. This is probably about 4 to 5 times what we normally see. So thank you for coming out. Be sure to talk with your neighbors and friends. Make sure they come out to vote pro or con on any of the warrant articles on March 11th. I'm Bob Shawman, your moderator. Good night. Oh, I'm sorry. Before we go, I almost forgot. Don't go yet. Accept a motion to adjourn. So move. Got it. Second by who? Okay. Okay. All those in favor of adjourning? Opposed? It's time for wine.